Recently, San Diego Comic-Con was set ablaze when Robert Downey Jr. was announced to be coming back to play Doctor Doom. We've got Doctor Doom, 2 Avengers movies going on. Recently, The Acolyte just came out with the premiere. X-Men 97 was Magneto right all along. It looks like a trend. Sympathetic villains. From the villain's perspective, should we cry for the bad man? Is the bad man really, was he right all along? Where did this start, though? When did we start being more interested in the villain than the hero? When did the villain start to become the hero? When did these lines get blurred? And how did it happen? We have somebody with a theory. We have a discussion to have today on Nerd Champ. All right. Today, we're going to get down to the origins of the anti-hero or the straight up villain hero, you might call it. And we're going to talk about it today. Our first contestant today from the M6P, you know him, you love him. It's John. All right. And here to battle John and tell him what it is. From parts unknown, the people's champion, Tim. Okay, everybody, you know how we do it here at Nerd Champs. One of our contestants is going to have a bold statement. He's going to have 2 minutes to make his argument. His competitor is going to have 2 minutes to tell him he's an idiot. And then we're going to keep on arguing some more. But to get us started, today's declaration is going to come from John. John, you have something to say, and I'm going to give you the floor to say it, right?
The Punisher is and always has been a straight-up villain.
All right. That's a pretty hard take right there. He sold a lot of comics for a villain. All right. Well, how do you feel about that, Tim?
We'll have to hear it.
Okay. All right. All right. We're going to send Tim away. He's going to sit here and start cribbing notes and figuring out what he's going to do about that. John, you're going to get 2 minutes to make your case that the Punisher is no hero, starting right.
Thanks, Dan. Frank Castle was introduced in Amazing Spider-Man number 129, published 50 years ago in 1974. It was written by Jerry Conway. He was introduced in that issue as he is and always will be a villain. He was nothing more than a lackey for a villain called the Jackal at that time. But over the years, he'd go on with his one-man war on crime, he called it, to gun down anybody he thought didn't deserve to live. He'd decide to murder whoever he didn't like, whoever's crime he decided was completely irredeemable, and these suckers have no chance of living when they encounter Frank Castle. He's a villain. He hunts down and preys upon the weak. He's stronger than them. He's smarter than them. He's faster than them. He breaks into drug dealers' houses and shoots them in the face. This is not the work of a hero. This is not the work of an anti-hero. This is the work of a murdering psychopath. That's what Frank Castle is. That's what Frank Castle has always been shown to be. They try to say maybe his motives are pure. There's lots of villains like that. Like Dan said in the intro, we're going to get a new Doctor Doom. I'm sure he's going to be sympathetic. You can look at Thanos and people say Thanos was right, or Magneto was right, or any of these villains have always been doing the wrong thing. And it's always about what you do, not what you think. His actions are murderous. They've always been murderous. You look at what happens in law enforcement in the real world today when a police officer who wrongfully shoots somebody and how the world goes crazy. But Frank Castle does it with every intent on killing people, and we're supposed to pretend he's an anti-hero or he's somehow sympathetic. He's not. He's a villain. He's a terrible, terrible villain. One of the worst, because he garners people to his side that think it's okay to be like him. He inspires others to do his murderous acts.
All right. Strong stuff from our friend John. We're going to bring in Timmy. Tim, did you hear that? Are you ready to go?
I didn't hear any of it. No, of course I did.
All right.
I'll say it again.
we're gonna send John off. We're gonna give Tim 2 minutes to respond to what John had to say. John's gonna go over here. When we're done with that, we're gonna bring us all back and we'll argue some more. Tim, you have 2 minutes starting right.
All right, John. So I look, I hear what you're saying. Frank has done some terrible things. I used to have a joke on the M6P whenever I would do the trivia portion of your shows over there, that whenever the trivia question was who killed blank, the answer is always Frank. It's always Frank. So I'm well aware that Frank has done some terrible things. I also am aware, though, that heroes do terrible things. Right? We take a look at Invincible. We take a look at The Boys. We take a look at Watchmen. We take a look at The Authority. I mean, just because they're heroes that do terrible things does not mean they're heroes. It doesn't mean that they don't have pure motives. It doesn't mean that they don't have, and sometimes are they a little misguided? Absolutely. Sometimes are they a little impulsive? Maybe, definitely. But I don't think that necessarily means that they're a villain. Okay. And particularly when we take a look at Frank, I think a lot of people sympathize with Frank's story. Having your family killed is one of those things that always is going to be something that kind of pulls on the heartstrings of everybody. So I think that everybody kind of sees that, and they see what Frank's line of thinking is, right? Is that nobody is going to do justice, so I have to do justice myself. This is not, it's like the opposite of Batman, who decides to take justice into his own hands however he wants to do it in a non-lethal way. Frank goes the exact opposite way and says, I'm going to do justice my way. And is it always something that is not morally ambiguous? No, sometimes there's a little gray there. And just because there's gray there doesn't mean he's not a hero. It doesn't mean that when the chips are all on the table and he has the chance to save somebody that needs to be saved, to do something that needs to be a good common good, that he doesn't do the right thing. And that's the difference between Frank Castle and a lot of the other people that I think we think of when we think of people that are sympathetic villains. Like when Dan started out the story, when we're talking about Magneto, when we're talking about some of these others, I think that there is a difference between Frank and those people in their line of thinking. That's just my opinion.
All right. Tim, coming hard. Back at John. But John's going to have an opportunity to reply. We're going to give John 1 minute during the rebuttals. We're going to leave everybody on the stage so we can see the reactions. We can see the shocked expressions. But make no mistake, our guys have uninterrupted space. You heard what Tim had to say. You have 1 minute to tell him why he's wrong, starting now.
Sure. Well, Tim, you're wrong because you're not right. It's as simple as that. You talked a lot about anti-heroes and guys from the Watchmen or Invincible that have to make tough choices. Frank Miller, that's the guy that wrote him, but Frank Castle, rather, doesn't make tough choices. He wakes up in the morning, and when he cooks his bacon and eggs, he says, I'm going to go kill somebody today. I hope I find somebody good. He doesn't have to kill somebody in a moment of opportunity that there's nothing else he can do but kill them, like a Superman in a terrible Zack Snyder movie. It's something that he wakes up every morning with the intent to do. He keeps a journal of it. He's thrilled by it. He gets giddy over the prospect of killing people because he's a murderous psychopath. That's who Frank Castle is. He's not like these other anti-heroes, even a Wolverine who sometimes has to kill, or the Watchmen like you're talking about. A lot of characters do. You are right on that. But that's not who Frank Castle is. He's not a guy he will do heroic things. He wants to make the world a better place, but he's a murderous psychopath. And he's going about it in all the wrong way. And like I said in my opening, it's all about your actions, not your intentions.
All right. That was a minute. You've heard what he had to say, Tim. Tell him why he's wrong. 1 minute starting now.
I think the biggest difference, though, is that I think that Frank has completely different motives than a lot of the other villains. I think that even the sympathetic villains, right? Even the sympathetic villains that think that they're doing the greater good or have something that tragically happened that pushed them to the certain point. At some point, those people completely snapped and became villains. They became something that had to tear down the establishment of the society around them in order to make their vision better. That's not what Frank is doing. Frank is trying to promote what is already the society around him by eliminating those that he thinks is at the bottom of the rung. And that's completely different That's completely different from the motives. Even though in execution, it doesn't sound like it's done very different. The motive is different. Frank thinks different than a villain. That's the difference. So, and I totally understand what you're saying. Frank does bad things. I'm not here to defend that Frank, buys candy and helps little ladies cross the road. He doesn't do that. Okay. But just because he does terrible things doesn't mean that he's a villain.
All right. That's 1 minute right there. And it's time to take our bearings, figure out where we are. I got to review my notes. And the first thing I want to say, Tim, I'm going to give you a deduction because you didn't bring him up. Your hero in mine, Paul Kersey, Charles Bronson from Death Wish.
No.
I mean, the guy's amazing. I mean, is anybody going to tell you that Charles Bronson is not a hero? Of course he's a hero. He's Charles Bronson.
Of course he's a hero.
His face is on the poster, and therefore he's the hero of the movie. How else do you determine who the hero is if you don't go by whose face is on the poster? So right there, that's a massive deduction. But at the same time, he does only kill bad people. So if you're only killing bad people, how villainous are you? I mean, yeah, he wants to kill people.
I mean, he killed Nick Fury, so not to go against my own will here, but he did kill Nick Fury, and he did kill a lot of good people too. But yeah,
I don't think Tim went to debate class. He's not supposed to concede these things.
Thanks, Tim. Good point.
See, I'm going to give the slight edge to John. He's staying strong to his convictions. He's not tipping his hand to you and giving you tips on how to move ahead. So right now,
I didn't want all the people that are going to watch this to hit us in the comments and be like, he killed Nick Fury. I just want to get it out there that we're aware of it. Okay, so
But how great is Nick Fury anyway? He's a super spy. I'm sure he's done some really, really bad stuff. He's done some hinky things, right? So,
well, of course. That's a whole other argument about the U.S. government's secret industries
game. And I think we've already launched into our free-for-all. So let's just start the clock on our 5-minute free-for-all starting now.
So, Tim, one of your points that you made is that he's trying to be within society, but he's actually trying to take society apart by just abolishing the legal system and being the judge, jury, and the executioner himself. That's what society is founded on. Everybody's got to pay their dues. There's plenty of people that go to jail and come out and turn their lives around, but Frank Castle won't give any of those people a chance. I mean, most of his comics were coming out. We're talking about drug dealers here because it was the 80s and the 90s, and that's what was popular at the time. These are the villains.
Sure.
Now, yeah, if you're talking about child rapists and killers and other things, an eye for an eye, and you say that, that's villainous to me, that's still murder. But maybe it's more defensible. But that's not all the people he killed. And let's just hope, because it is a perfect comic book 616 universe, that every bullet he fires hits its target, and every building he blows up doesn't have any innocents nearby, and nothing bad ever happens. Every time he seems to fight a hero like a Daredevil or a Captain America, they end up having to save people from his destruction, while they're trying to talk him into the path of righteousness and the path of goodness, which he never follows because he's a psychopath. That's what he is. That's who he is. He was in war. That was one of the great Frank Castle comics.
I just think his motives are pure. Okay, he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I just think his motives are pure, and because the
Joker's family was killed, and he's cuckoo too. That doesn't make him a hero because his family was killed in a terrible accident, and he thinks now life's a joke because terrible accidents happen. He's got almost the same story as Frank Castle. It's just John, it wasn't a freak accident. It was the mafia. So now he's going after them. Go ahead, Tim.
John, the real villain is the person that introduced me to the Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie. That's the real villain. Okay. But as far as Frank Castle, Frank Castle is yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But Frank Castle, I always will consider Frank Castle a hero, regardless of who he kills, regardless of who he tries to kill. Of course, he tried to kill Daredevil, tried to kill Spider-Man. Regardless of all of that, the fact of the matter is that Frank Castle has pure motives. They're based in logic. And he is crazy. Okay, he is crazy, but they are based in logic, and they're based in logic, based on pure motives, and that's something that I think you cannot overlook that when we're weighing.
What is so? We'll wrap it all up with Dan's point at the beginning.
That's what the category is for.
What is the pure motivation?
What's that?
That's what is the goal that he's trying to achieve that is pure? What is it? What is his pure
He's
motive?
trying to
eliminate crime by committing crime.
He's trying to eliminate the lower,
So
the
pure.
lower. Yeah, he's trying to eliminate the street trash. I mean, you know, and that's a pure motive, okay? Because the street trash is built to steal.
He's a one-man war on crime by committing crimes, been killing people.
But like
Killing people. If a drug dealer kills another drug dealer, that's murder. But if Frank Castle kills a drug dealer, that's a heroic action.
It's like killing criminals.
Well, first of all, you got to prove that Frank did it, which is very hard. Okay. Second of all,
except for when he leaves his knife with the Punisher logo on it.
I mean, will we say, and this is big, will we say that the streets are a better place after Frank's done with them? I think that we probably could say they were.
No, I don't think we can say that. They're bloodier. People are missing their children that went wayward and were led astray by older gang members. No, let's bring it back to what Dan said at the beginning. We're dealing with a lot of shows and a lot of movies and a lot of stories about villains and seeing it from their perspective. That's what Marvel's always given us with the Punisher, but that's who he is. You are convinced they did such a good job of it that you think he's right, but he's not. He's wrong. He's killing people that have a chance to redeem their lives, have a chance to turn themselves around. Like I said, he's taking away
Batman. The Punisher isn't Batman. The Punisher is.
He's not. He's a villain. Batman's a hero. That's the difference. Because Batman doesn't kill people, and the Punisher does. And that's all he does. He doesn't just kill the really bad ones. He kills all of them. I want to eliminate all crime. I'm going to kill all the people that are committing any kind of crime. He used to shoot jaywalkers. He used to shoot jaywalkers in the face, in addition to killing Nick Fury and trying to kill Daredevil and trying to kill everybody but Captain America is the only one that he respects, I think.
But I mean, once again, just because he does terrible things doesn't mean that he's not a hero. I think that he's a hero. There are a lot of heroes that do terrible things.
I think there are a lot of villains that take heroic actions from time to time.
That's what anti-hero categories.
And I think Punisher's more of the villain that takes a heroic action than a hero that takes villainous actions.
All right.
Let's say that.
All right. We're coming to a close. Our 5 minutes are up, and it's time to weigh the tables. Tim has made a lot of good points about Frank and his noble intentions. John has made a lot of good points about maybe not so noble intentions and also just what is the overall effect of all this. And taken all together with everything we've got, I think today's nerd champ is going to be John. Yeah. See, here's the thing. Tim was talking about, man. Yeah. Tim, you talked about how sometimes he would promote the greater good or do the right thing as opposed to just extracting vengeance, but you didn't cite your sources. You didn't have your issue numbers. You didn't have your storylines. You never gave me that specific instance where Punisher had a chance to kill this dude, but he didn't kill him because he saved somebody. You didn't cite your sources. You didn't bring your materials. And John had his issue numbers. He had his dates. He had his writers. He was ready. And that's why today,
Judge Judy over here. Holy moly.
John.
An excellent judge, Your Honor. Thank you.
Yeah. See, John brought his receipts. Judge Judy will not hear any of your nonsense. You didn't bring your receipts. So, John has definitively established that the Punisher is a villain. A 30-second victory shot to tell us exactly how villainous he is starts.
Thanks, Dan. I need to tell everybody that the Punisher is a murdering psychopath. Don't wear his skull on your chest unless you too are a murdering psychopath. You may have some good intentions, but don't murder people to prove your point. It's just wrong. And that's why the Punisher is a villain.
That's been another episode of Nerd Champs. Tell all your friends to find us and subscribe and show them this video. Thank you.